It's no secret that the world right now, well, sucks. Everywhere you look just gives you another reason to feel terrible, yet we all just try our best to keep our heads and move on. We find solace in community. We distract ourselves with hobbies and whatever glimmer of joy we can find in our lives. But ultimately, it's not enough. It doesn't stop the things that are making us sad. The people that day to day are intent on ruining the lives of many and endangering countless others, the discriminations and bigotry we face, the future dystopia and the dictatorships we all fear are still present. Yet so many of us that have voices that can act, we don't. Paul Thomas Anderson understands this. He knows about how people are dealing with feeling voiceless, feeling like they can't do anything and just hoping things get better. And he got cooking. Ladies, gentlemen, and NBs of the jury, may I introduce the latest product from PTA's mind, One Battle After Another. After the original trailer dropped, I didn't pay this movie much attention. I heard some people were excited for it, but it was similar to Caught Stealing for me, where I didn't fully understand what it was going for, even if it was kind of a fun concept. I know Leo has done other movies over the past few years, like Kills of the Flower Moon, but I haven't seen that, so to me, he's been MIA for a while. And because of this, it was quite surprising to see him again. I mean, people put him very highly in the running for the best actor of all time, so maybe he has good reason for it. The overall hype is mostly what piqued my interest. Everyone was confident in this being a Best Picture contender due to the combo of PTA and Leo. And how the hell could I pass that up? And now that I've watched the movie, I can safely say that it was not what I expected. And that isn't a bad thing, but it did temporarily hamper my enjoyment. Now let me just say right here that One Battle After Another is sitting at 4.5 stars on Letterboxd right now, which if you don't use Letterboxd, is insane! And anything I may say against this movie is probably incredibly opinionated and not something a lot of people agree with. Basically, I might be stupid and completely wrong, okay? I'm not perfect. But One Battle After Another follows Leonardo DiCaprio as Bob Ferguson, an alias for the formerly known revolutionary Ghetto Pat, the Rocket Man, a rebel that liberated immigration detention camps and sowed chaos in a world of authoritarian fascism and forced order that would detain people for the slightest of reasons. Seem familiar? He starts a relationship with a superior revolutionary, Perfidia Beverly Hills, played by Tiana Taylor, a confident but aggressive advocate for free borders, free bodies, free choices, and free from fucking fear. The two having a spicy and scandalous time during a montage where we see them fight for freedom. One liberation ending with Perfidia confronting an American general, Stephen J. Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn. He's basically the main villain of the movie since he also has the hots for Perfidia after seeing her take control of the situation, and his peanuts. Also, he fetishizes black women. Perfidia ends up having a child, but the revolution at the time was going under, and Leo and her had to jump ship, changing his and the baby's name to Bob and Willa Ferguson. Fast forward 16 years, and Willa is now played by Chase Infinity, and will soon realize that she can't escape the sins of her parents, and that not everyone chooses to join the rebellion against fascism. While Leo tries his best to keep her safe in a world that he's ran from for such a long time, hiding in drugs and alcohol and frying his brain so he can deliver one of the funniest performances of the year next to Delta Slim from Sinners. Okay, so remember when I said this movie wasn't what I expected? I kind of approached it wrong. Watching the movie, I was trying to reach for symbolism and thematic relevance, subtlety in the storytelling, and I could easily grasp the themes, but I didn't know what it was trying to tell me. And that's because I was playing 4D chess with myself. The movie is trying to say one thing, and one thing loudly and proudly. One Battle After Another holds up a mirror that first appears darkened, until you look closer and realize it's an illusion. There is no darkness on the mirror. The darkness is but the reflection of the world you see around you, the rise of authoritarian fascism, the normalization of anti-immigration, the militant brutality we allow to happen because we feel powerless to stand against it. The movie is also loosely based on the 1990 book Vinland? By Thomas Pynchon, a book centering around the freeing spirit of rebellion and directly critiquing the fascistic state of the re-election of Reagan and the repression of Nixon. Now, I'm not American, so I'm not supremely well versed in all this, but the same themes are definitely being tackled in both book and movie, even if PTA, in his own words, stole the parts that spoke to me and just started running like a thief. Because this movie is not an 80s world living off of the pain of the 60s. And that's probably because of how history is repeating itself and authoritarian fascism is once again on the rise and even more stupid than ever. Disco Elysium never misses, man. Alongside this messaging, we're given genuinely incredible performances in this movie. Stretching through all of the main cast, Bob is a delightful dad failure who struggles so much to remember a password, And all of his problems are actually pretty relatable considering he's fighting his own memory and the fact that he needs to charge his phone. Most of the movie follows him, so we get plenty of iconic moments, lines, and faces that made many people in my theatre erupt with laughter. I'd say this character is used a lot more for the world building and to properly establish the state that the government is in, which is also what contributes to the plot constantly moving forward. Once the inciting incident sets things in motion, there's only a few scenes that actually slow things down, and for the most part, they're from the perspective of the villains, which makes a lot of sense since they're the ones unaffected by the tragedies of the world. They're fucking rich after all. But his story is very much one of chaos and disorder. In fact, he kind of gets mogged by Benicio del Toro's Sensei Sergio, who partners up with Bob and is way more cool and confident than he is. Their chemistry as old rebellion friends is really well done, and they're a delightful duo together, with some of the funniest moments. And even on his own, Del Toro is still a prime contender for Best Supporting Actor. His character is one of the most interesting to me solely because of how much he's doing without even having that much screen time. He's in charge of a huge movement and operation, and yet he still makes himself fully available for Bob in his time of need, who, in a paranoid and anxious state, cannot fathom the concept of anyone else nearby, Sensei included, being the targeted ones. Aside from these two, we have Perfidia, a very complex character that I can see a lot of people not liking for very valid reasons. She's a wildfire, a loose cannon, and someone who cannot sustain the lifestyle she lives. I was confused by her inclusion at first, but I think a scene towards the very end of the movie ties it all together in a nice little emotional bow. She is someone who, much like Bob, made a lot of mistakes and is a prime example of what to learn from. Tiana Taylor honestly nails the very grey nature of this character due to the two sides of her needing to be balanced, and I think she handles it really well and understood exactly how to convey what she feels behind her stern face. Sean Penn is already being highly praised for playing Lockjaw as this disgusting little freak, who is right up there with Dennis Quaid in The Substance and the Major from The Long Walk as some of the most hateable antagonists in recent film. His face is twisted into a snarl the entire runtime, and his goals are such a disgusting, yet realistic representation of damage control that white nationalist higher-ups and politicians do rather than facing the consequences of their actions because they're convinced that they can get away with anything and leave behind a wake of disrupted or destroyed lives. Not to mention his imposing presence in every single conversation and how he practically spits out his words to show his disdain for whoever he's talking to. Chase Infinity debatably gives the most important performance of the movie, considering how she is the one connected to everything and tying it all together. She is Bob's motivation, Perfidia's offspring, and a constant target of the villains as she tries to use a mix of their parents' paranoid training and her own ingenuity to prove herself in a world and a fight that she didn't start. And this is pulled off magnificently. You really feel for Willa and see her progress as a character so much with one of the greatest climax scenes of the year. Oh, and this is her first movie, by the way. This year is insane for standout first performances, looking at her, Miles Caton in Sinners, Sora Wong in Bring Her Back, and probably a ton more I don't know about or don't recognize. And that's just beautiful. Especially since it ties into the themes of the movie, focusing on parenthood in the future. The score of this movie also adds to it being such a fast-paced adventure. There's a common use of this repeating piano track that is a masterclass in inducing anxiety and something that should really seem more repetitive than it is, but it never bothered me. The score overall is amazing and really adds to the tension, excitement, and emotional building in every scene, which works in perfect tandem with the genuinely definitive best cinematography of the year. The cocaine is definitely working for Paul Thomas Anderson, because every 13 seconds, I was thinking, fuck, that's a cool shot. Or how did they get the camera to do that? Or damn, I really need the bathroom. But the last one is kind of unrelated. This movie is chock full of one takes, but Paul uses them not just to flex the great acting, but to really flesh out the scenery presented in the movie, to show you every part of a building, to set places up to revisit later, to create a grand scale of the wider world and revolution as it's being built up again. To show you the stories of every character in a scene as it happens, and it's fucking amazing. Even when the camera isn't following right behind the characters, we get some gorgeous lighting and framework that makes scenes look like they're following silhouettes, shots of conversations happening that we see through the reflection of a mirror, unorthodox camera placement that show every little detail of someone's movement to give you a cool action scene to catch you off guard with an off-screen attack, creating even more of a sense of hopelessness, because even we didn't see that coming. Also off topic, but the gunshots in this movie are so fucking loud. I felt genuinely jump scared every time one happened. It was crazy. Something I noticed too is that PTA loves to hold the camera up to scenes and then have dialogue happen off screen for a second before either moving the camera with a character or the character who spoke coming into frame. This does wonders for immersion purposes and makes us really feel like we're there with the characters instead of just seeing them on screen. It's incredibly engaging and works wonders for the fast-paced tone the movie is going for. Since we're right there along for the ride, it makes the camera feel like a character. There's so much personality. And man, even thinking about that scene, you know the one. Perfection. I mean, it kicks off with an insane needle drop and the most creative camera work of a car door shutting I've ever seen, and is a perfect representation of the themes of the movie and the characters featured. It's been really hard for me to talk about this because I'm trying not to spoil things, yet so much of the spoilers are key aspects to understanding the core ideas of the movie, and what it is using as vessels to speak to the audience. So spoiler warning, go watch this movie unspoiled, it's incredibly important and fucking rules. 3, 2, 1, thank you, Sensei! I fucking love that Bob does nothing to actually contribute to this movie. The ultimate culmination of his character is showing up after the battle is done and being there for his daughter, being a shoulder to cry on. Because in the wise words of Jay Pritchett, 80% of being a dad is just showing up. Be there for your kids, help them where you can, but sometimes you have to let them fight their own battles. It'll better them as people and allow them to find their wings to fly. If you've prepared them enough for the dangerous world out there, they will use that info, that wisdom, that protection you've instilled in them, and they will thrive. Willa uses the anxiety from Bob, the fighting spirit and leadership from Peridia, and yet learns from their mistakes flying too close to the sun, and is set to go even further than them thanks to it. The past is always there to learn from, but the only way to secure a great future in the face of controlling authoritarian fascism is to announce disagreement with chaos, political uproar, and showing the spirit to truly fight for what you believe in. Lockjaw is a coward trying to stamp out his past, not learning from it. He runs from his battles and ignores the implication that he is impure because of what he has done, not realizing that people he surrounds himself with are self-eating parasites that are slowly destroying themselves with their own apathy and hatred of anyone they deem below them, or less pure than their ideals. He may be among sharks, but his nose is bleeding, and he doesn't realize just how much of a target that puts on his back. Even trying to lie his way to the final confrontation, after a staged murder attempt from a member of the organization he's trying to join, by the way, and he doesn't even stop for a second to think that the people he's messing with would let any part of that slide. At first, I didn't understand why they brought him back just to kill him anyway, but it's just to solidify the character's idiocy and pathetic nature of his obsession with power and being accepted by the other neo-fascists, and how it basically kills him twice. His fetishization isn't the only source of his downfall. He made his own decisions, he refused to face his battles. Perfidia also ran from her battles, becoming a rat and getting many revolutionaries killed, with Bob narrowly escaping becoming one. She's a selfish coward, but not a monster. She still feels, and she still makes mistakes as a human, and these mistakes are exactly what Willa has to learn from. She isn't her mother, and she isn't her father. She is the best of both of them, and has been shown the worst. Leading the next generation means that they are in good fucking hands because of how they taught her and how we should do the same if we want to secure any kind of progressive or accepting future. Alright, I'm going to end spoilers here, but the bottom line is, please go watch one battle after another. This movie hasn't left my brain since I watched it, and that's a great thing because it has made me appreciate every single detail. Paul Thomas Anderson put his heart and soul into making this an incredible experience for everyone to watch, balancing humor, heart, and hailing Saint Nick. It's a movie that is angry at the state of the world and what everyone is currently having to deal with, representing several different types of people with the theme of battles. Of course, the title One Battle After Another could mean several things. It could be a representative of the fight against fascism, and how it is unfortunately endless because true evil and true good will always exist and always clash. It could be a metaphor for life, that we're just cruising along until we have to survive our next battle. But each character handles their battles differently. Bob becomes paranoid and anxious, hiding his pain and himself in drugs and alcohol, running from any and all conflict and refusing to lie in the bed he's made, even forgetting so much as the revolutionary codes and life that he once lived. It's all a distant memory to him and something that he no longer really cares about until he has to worry about it because he's been thrust into such a dangerous situation. Perfidia and even Lockjaw are also very similar representations of these themes, being evocative of the last generation of the rebels and the fascists, the previous fights. Meanwhile, the key to this entire movie, much like Danganronpa 2, is the future. The next generation, the ones who have the fighting spirit passed down from their parents and can learn from their mistakes. Those who were brought up into this world of hatred and unjust order and have had to live through and endure its terror. They will rise up and they will be the ones to continue the fight against fascism, to go against the cyclical nature of the world and politics, and to raise their head up high and fight for the rights they believe in. Raise your kids to fight for their values and beliefs, to stand against the oppression. I had no idea what to give this when I started writing the script, I'm going to be completely honest, but the more I've come to think about it, the higher my score has gotten. And my lack of flaws with this movie have landed me square on the 10 out of 10 mark with no complaints. Viva la revolution! And hopefully, I see one like after another on this video. Okay, to be real though, this was a pretty hard review to make. This is a movie that is saying the same thing in a lot of different ways and using different vessels in order to tell the story that is meant to represent a hopeful future for our real life. I had to spend a lot of time reading reviews and pondering about this movie to reach the conclusions I came to, and I'm glad I did because not only did it enhance my enjoyment of the movie, but it made me really appreciate all the little details PTA took into account. So yeah, if you want to show appreciation for my harder work than usual, hit the like button and hit subscribe if you want to see more. I'm happy to see so many more people recently, and it's a little concerning, but whatever. Hopefully I can keep growing things so I don't have to mention the YouTube algorithm being mean to small content creators. Until then, I'm going to go listen to Chapel Roan while rewatching Mean Girls. #Justice for Jungle Pussy.